Thank you for tuning into our podcast. We are coming to you from South Hadley, Massachusetts. I am your host, Carrie, and joining me is Holyoke's very own local historian and creator of the Historical Tours of Greater Holyoke, Robert Colum, and in which he offers both public and private tours, as well as presentations of local canal systems, reservoirs, cemeteries, and churches, as well as various parks and streets in Holyoke, South Hadley, and Chicopee, Massachusetts. Now, you actually lead these tours and give these presentations yourself, is that correct?
Yes, and out of the ones I started originally, the church category is the first.
That's awesome. So today you're going to be talking about the Blessed Sacrament Church Tour. So describe the modern campus.
All right, the modern campus is all together, and that's very deceptive because I tell people the Blessed Sacrament Church is a very old church, and they say, no, it's not, because if you go to the campus on Westfield Road, at the corner of Northampton Street, you'll see the octagonal church from the 1950s, you'll see the school from the 1950s, you'll see the convent from the 1960s, and the rectory from the 1950s. You say, oh, that's a young church, only about 70 years old. No, it's very deceptive because the entire campus originally was a quarter mile down to the south of Northampton Street. And there, next to the Metcalf School, were the rectory, the convent, the school, and the church. And two out of the four are still there. And so people say, no, that's impossible. But I tell them that the modern one was redone because the old elements didn't look their part, and so they really wanted to have them look. And plus, this part of Holyoke got very rich in the late 40s and early 50s, and they wanted to build up a beautiful church for themselves, and they did so.
So now where was the older campus from 1902?
Okay, that was located mostly at the corner of Hitchcock Street and Northampton Street. That is in fact where the school and the church are now. And they're still there, but it was bought out by, I think, a special education group. And it was used from 1902 to about the 1950s when they made the modern one. And the way it worked was that the church was on the upper floor and the school was on the lower floor. The rectory itself was a building only about 100 feet to the south, and the convent was the home that's right behind the school church, and that building is still there. And so you had a very strange situation. It didn't look the part for any element of it. Now, one thing that is unique and further on this history is that for the first year, the main church school building wasn't ready. So in 1902, it wasn't ready. It was ready in 1903. And so for 1 year, they used the Metcalf School as the church. And the church was in the auditorium on the upper floor of the Metcalf School on Sundays. They changed it over to look like a church for that one day. And the school had to wait 1 year to 1903 to be used anyways.
Okay, so quickly before we continue with the rest of our interview, just to fill our listeners in, if you want to find out more information or want to sign up for any of his various tours, you can check out his website at holyokecanaltour.org. There he has both videos of the various stops along each tour, also past and present photos of the historical sites throughout. And if you are interested in setting up a private tour, you can email him directly at bobcat4214, capital B, at yahoo.com. They are perfect for fun, educational outdoor activities for the whole family or for group parties, especially those special occasions and get-togethers. They're also good for getting outdoors just for the day. So now getting back to our interview, why was this church started and by whom?
Okay, this church was started because the trolley system had come to Holyoke. And in the beginning, it was mostly down on Main Street, but with the passage of years, it grew and grew. By the 1890s, it had gone up to higher portions of Holyoke. So it had gone up Sargent Street. It had gone up Laurel Street. It had gone up into Highlands and a couple different trolley routes. So the upper parts of Holyoke were being developed by the 1890s when it was electrified. You can go further. And so thus, you had the ability to have houses develop up there and stores and churches. When people move, churches better move too. Now, so the trolley invention started this, but what church pushed it? Well, it was the Sacred Heart Church. The Sacred Heart Church on Maple Street from 1876 was growing larger and larger, and it wanted to start a place so that its parishioners who were up now in this section, the Elmwood section of Holyoke, could have a place to worship without traveling so far. And they developed this church up in 1902 to 1903. And it was all because the trolley was bringing people further and further up. And you also needed, of course, the school, rectory, and convent, and that came right after that. And also public schools started and stores started. So if you look around that area, you know, the Metcalf School started around that time, and you had a grocery, Elmwood grocery, right across the street from the old school church. So the push of population moving outwards allowed this to develop.
Now, what does the future hold for this area?
All right, I think that someday, at this point, Holyoke has 3 functional churches. In the last couple of years, Sacred Heart Church, or what's called Our Lady of Guadalupe, and the Immaculate Conception Church have closed, except for very special events, and the parishioners are now going to St. Jerome's. That means there's 3 Catholic churches in Holyoke where there was once 9. And so the amount of churches has gotten lower and lower. Now, they're going to have to decide which one of those 3 they're going to keep, because, say, in 20 years, you want to close another one. Are you going to close St. Jerome's, which is the oldest? Are you going to close Holy Cross, which is now called Our Lady of the Cross Parish? Or are you going to close Blessed Sacrament? Well, it depends upon the shift of the population. It depends upon how well maintained any one of them is. And so they're going to have to make a tough decision at some point. And it might come much sooner than you think.
Well, thank you, Robert, for educating us on your tours, and we want to thank our listeners for tuning in as well. You can tune into a large selection of our other podcasts and much more on his website, again, at holyokecanaltour.org. And also, again, you can email him directly for private tours or to inquire about anything else at bobcat4214, capital B, at yahoo.com. And be sure to keep an eye out for his upcoming 2024 season tours and more as they become available. Thank you for tuning in.